you can't deny that Kaspa is consolidating on a reversal, and we're going to be going into some Kas media analytics, explaining these confusing, complicated things into something that you can understand, because some of these charts are actually looking pretty darn good. So something that I found very, very interesting, probably one of my favorite charts, especially you don't really see this information out there. This really brought it all together, and I love it, is this long-term holder realized price and the short-term holder realized price. This is kind of confusing. It's like, okay, what is this? It looks like it's just like some sort of moving average. But yeah, it's a moving average of long-term and short-term holders. This is super interesting because basically you could find these support levels and how that refers and reflects in the price. So here we go with the short-term holder realized price. When the Kaspa price is below the realized price of a short-term holder, that essentially means that they're more likely to hodl. They're more likely to hold, to buy to hold. They're short-term traders. They're basically in a little bit of the average. Okay, the short-term average of these holders are in a net negative because Kaspa is now below the price that they got in at the short-term average for these people, for these holders. That's very interesting because that's basically a level that you want to be buying at, especially now when this is type of reversal happening. It didn't happen often when it was in a clear bull cycle. Okay, once it happened, it was a perfect buying opportunity. Buy that up. Even a touchdown here, every single touchdown, a perfect buying opportunity. Incredible signal. I mean, for people, anyone that had this type of signal back in the day, I mean, it was spot on. Especially right now, though, over here, it's very interesting. Here, it's the signals, the trend is flattening out, but they're getting very close together all the way up here. And this was also a signal that reversal, a change was happening. So here we go, the price was above the short-term realized price. It was always consistently above, and now it's the same. It was flattened and now it's the same. And now we're again seeing this flattening happening out here. This is on a log chart. So this flattening is also going to be a signal that the reversal is happening. So here we go, the price was all consistently below now. This is bull run, bull cycle, bear cycle for Kaspa, and now we're seeing a flattening and actually moving upward. It's clear to see this upward movement in the linear chart. So it's literally spelling out macro reversal. Now we're looking at the long-term holders and it's even clearer what's going on here. So these long-term holders, of course, they're all in profit. You buy in at all these low prices. You're on average going to be in profit, except recently, once the price dropped down to this 5-6 cent range. Oh, look at this. These long-term holders are now net even. I also mentioned about this deep macro 200 day, 200 week moving average that I noticed that it's like you could have skipped out on all of this entire bull cycle for Kaspa and just bought in at these levels, at these lows, and that would have essentially been your entry. You could have skipped it all out, and on average, if you bought in at these lows, that would have been like you bought in at these earlier points on average. Again, long-term holder average, this is the perfect support level. Phenomenal how it created a support level. Right when the Kaspa price reached the point where on average, the long-term holder reached a net zero on their gains, on their long-term gains. So every single time that happened, look at what happened to the price. It bounced, okay? So you could see this there's all these trends that say a similar thing. Here we go with this realized price for long and short-term holders. You could look at macro moving averages of the price. You can look at all these various indicators and they all tell a similar story. When you pile it all together, it helps you, it paints a clearer picture basically. So this is definitely a chart that I really do like. So yeah, of course, there's still a chance for Kaspa to come back down, back down to like 7 cents. But it's not looking likely. Triple test down here and how the macro moving average is moving up, especially across crypto, it's not looking like Kaspa is going to have to drop down even lower. Don't you think I forgot about my boy Nacho out there doing some work, also consolidating with Kaspa, macro uptrend. Let's get back to the video. And we have the spent output profit ratio. Now, this essentially means where the Kaspa coins are being sold. Are they being sold for profit or are they being sold at a loss? So of course, at the start, a lot of people sold for profit. Profit margins were high. Some people were selling at a loss down here. I kind of feel bad for those people. Oh snap. Those are probably like a lot of like those influencers that you see nowadays. They just gone silent on Kaspa. Maybe they shilled it at the start and they're like, yo, I got I was shilling Kaspa at the start, and now they don't anymore. They're probably these big, huge rips in the market. Now down here, it's also pretty funny because you got so many people during this whole consolidation period selling Kaspa for a loss. It's not a major loss, but still losses nonetheless, especially down here, this last capitulation liquidation event, big loss over here. Okay, not huge, but relative to its recent consolidation period of the past like year to almost 2 years is a big event. So here are the hodl waves. I love this chart. I love what it says because it shows that there's so much supply of Kaspa that's being held, that's being hodled from long term. Okay, look at this. At these levels, at this price right now that we're at this level here, we finally see the 3-year with a little bit of green up here. 5-year, it's not there yet. This isn't on the, not even on the history of Kaspa. It hasn't been released for 5 years. But with 3 to 5 year, here we go. Finally seeing that there's that, what is this supply? It's representing about 16% of the total supply. So here we go with 1 to 2 years, 17%. So what this means, this color here, people that have been holding for 2 to 3 years has been increasing. Like there's a lot of holders that haven't touched their Kaspa in the past 2 to 3 years. I thought this was 3 to 5 years, but I guess I got the color wrong. So here we are with the 1 to 2 year is slowly decreasing. There's less hodlers for 1 to 2 years. I mean, it makes sense, especially with the whole KRC20 inscriptions and everything with smart contracts, people buying maybe tangents and moving their Kaspa. I don't blame them, honestly, for moving crypto. It's not like it's a bad thing. Here's the 6 to 12 months representing 13% of the supply. I mean, this is a lot of portion, a huge portion of the supply just hasn't moved in the past like year, the past 6 months. I mean, this is the vast majority of the supply. So, I mean, I think they took a lot of stuff from Kaspa Analytics, this whole website, and that's fine. I don't know if they're working with them or what, but I mean, the whole hodl wave comes from here, I guess. But the inactive supply, I like this chart, honestly, a little bit better because it's a little clearer. Over the supply not moved in the past 3 months, it reached almost it was retesting its all-time high of 75%, not moved in 3 months. I mean, talk about supply shock. You just can't get so much. Oh, it looks like a huge whale or someone. Maybe this is someone who got liquidated. Yeah, maybe they got liquidated. Maybe they needed to add collateral. They had this. This is a significant percent of the supply that just moved at this extreme low. Did they sell? Did they get liquidated? Did they provide collateral to their liquidation? Look at this. This is basically around 3% of the entire supply. Oh my word! Someone got hit. Okay, or maybe just a lot of people got hit during that liquidation event. Whether they got liquidated or whether they sold a FOMO sale and they panicked, who knows? But it's interesting. Here we go again, similar. All right, so we got over the past 6 months, it's been rising. Now 58, it's continuing to rise. The hodlers who've gotten in down here at this 5-cent mark have just been, they haven't been touching their Kaspa. They got in at these lows and they're like, all right, I'm good to go. I'm set for life. Peace out. Come back. I'll come back in like 5-10 years. 1 year is also steadily increasing. 2 years also steadily increasing. These people are in the mindset. They got down at this 5-cent mark. Heck no, they're not even they don't dare touch that Kaspa from back down there. It's just been increasing from down since this 5-cent. It's been increasing very steadily. Past 3 years as well, increasing very steadily. Love to see it. A lot of hodlers in Kaspa, and it's a significant percent of the supply. I mean, we see 3 months reaching 75%. There's not a lot of supply out there for people to trade, for people to buy. That's awesome. That's good to see. Here's another signal, another indicator, MVRV Z-score. So this basically shows when it reaches this top bar here, top of the bandwidth, it signals that it's a little bit overbought, and it signals that it could be the top. Similarly to when it's down here, it signals that it could be the bottom, and it works. It's been working pretty well with Kaspa, with significant spikes in price and significant drawbacks. Now here we go with this, during this whole period of a bear cycle, it's been down consolidating in this level, in this low bandwidth. So of course it's a great time to buy Kaspa. So it doesn't really time maybe the market bottom perfectly. I mean, it did. I mean, look at this. It literally dropped all the way down here when Kaspa was, it dropped down to, I think this like 6 cent range, 6.5, 6 cents. Yeah, I think that's on some exchanges, it literally dropped to 6 cents. And so here was like 5.2 cents, and this is 6 cents. And now here's 7.5, 7.3 cents. So yeah, it did do a pretty good job at timing that at least. So interesting indicator nonetheless. Going back to the short-term, long-term holder supply, this is also pretty cool to see because this percent here, you could see 50% long-term holders, short-term holder, 50%. And now here with this drop, interesting because it basically showed that a lot more percent went to short-term holders. A lot of movement was going on here. And what happened at this point? Well, maybe that those long-term holders, they sold. And since that percent supply was moving around, there's opportunity for what can happen, well, to move it on an exchange. And they could have sold, and that could have been the top right there. Possible, who knows? And now here we go, consolidating upward, growing. What this means is there's a lot more long-term holders. The supply is more in the hands of long-term holders as this moves upward. So that's good to see, especially as we consolidate here. So this is pretty self-explanatory. This is Kaspa whale shadows. You see the shadow of a whale, basically revived supply, large whales. I want to see, okay, look at the UTXO, 1.2 million, 5.3 million. I believe that's referring to the Kaspa amount that was taken out of the shadows. And this, the blue represents 3 to 5 years, and the green represents 2 to 3 years of how long it was in that hodl mode, and now it suddenly came out of the shadows. Very interesting how it tracks even the UTXO. You know, whether this helps or not, it doesn't seem like it has a significant impact on price, but still interesting metric nonetheless. So coin days destroyed is basically another metric for hodls. People that are hodling, the supply hodled, the supply held for a longer period of time. That's what this whole chart represents. Basically, for every single Kaspa that is held for a certain amount of days, that increases the value of that given Kaspa. So if you have one Kaspa held for 10 days, that one Kaspa then equals 10 Kaspa. That's what this chart represents. And if you move it, then you just lost 10. You just lost those 10 days. You just got destroyed. Those coins, coin days just got destroyed. So in simple terms, it's just basically a representation of how much of the supply is being held for longer periods of time. It's very interesting to see because here we go with basically a lot more people had been holding a larger percent of the Kaspa supply, and down at this drop though, it caused so many people to stop holding and to move their Kaspa. So probably caused a lot of people to sell, move it to exchanges. A lot of movement was happening at this level. Like this is probably the first spook, and they're like, oh, it's happening again. It's going to be a lot worse. And they probably sold and they stopped holding. Very interesting metric when you look at it at certain times like that. Value days destroyed. Again, it goes into a similar thing. Interesting indicator. So this represents the spending velocity of Kaspa as the price changes. Oops. As it gets really high, it could be a signal for basically that a large whale just moved a lot of the inactive supply of Kaspa. That's essentially what these large spikes mean. And it's been interesting how it works. It's not completely inaccurate. I mean, look at this. It seems like when the price rises, larger chunk of the supply becomes active again. It worked pretty well over here. I mean, it's kind of obvious though. It's like you see the price rising a lot. You already know a lot of long-term holders are probably going to be selling. But in any case, another signal. And well, it also works because, I mean, here, for example, a lot of the supply was woke up, and they likely, when the supply wakes up, when it moves, what's going to happen? Why are they moving it? Well, more likely, they're going to probably be selling it if they're going to be moving an active supply, unless they're moving it to a cold storage, but it's kind of weird timing when the price is like at such a peak like that. So there was kind of clear as the one time. I mean, here too, it's like, you know, what's interesting, it creates almost like that type of hill formation. And this type of hill formation you can see with other indicators, like for example, the MACD. A lot of things can reflect a normal distribution graph. That was pretty cool to see. Here they thought this is the top, so much supply moved, but nah, it kept going up. Here it got a little spike, and here it's more interesting if it's like a very, very large if this is a very high spike, something like in this range up here, start to maybe raise some eyebrows that, okay, maybe if there's someone out there that's going to be suppressing the price from going further because there's so much supply that's on an exchange trying to be sold. So interesting, very interesting metric, something to keep an eye on. Kaspa net unrealized profit. Love the chart, gotta love it. Really interesting info because this represents the whole euphoria, greed, and capitulation, okay? So once it reaches a negative value, that's when there's the holders or the average holder is in net loss, unrealized loss. So basically they haven't sold, but they bought and they're holding at a loss. They're holding it and it's less than the amount that they purchased for. So when it's positive, basically we're looking at this green, this blue chart here, not the white one. The white one's the price of Kaspa on the log time frame. So here, when it's positive, it means that these Caspians are in a net profit on average. So it's interesting. We never really got into that euphoria phase yet for Kaspa. Oh, well, no, never mind. I actually did get up here a little bit. And it's funny, the price kept going up even past this euphoria stage. A lot of people were in profit at the start. But really cool that capitulation definitely did look like it happened at the 6 cent range. Feel bad for those who sold down there. The charts were saying all the same thing, that it was the bottom. A lot of people were hoping for that 5 cent, but 6 cents was the bottom. You look across all the crypto market as well, it signaled that a similar bottom was happening just across the whole crypto market. So with this type of consolidation, I do believe it's going to break upward, but there's room for anything. There's room for volatility. It might be a dump back down to liquidate some scrubs that are over leveraged and then pump back up. It's just volatility. The macro consolidation, the macro movement is what you have to focus on, and just understand there's so much room for Kaspa to grow, especially with market dominance within the crypto industry. These are basically just the raw input for this whole formula, the percent supply and profit and loss, percent supply and profit moving average. So this hype cycles, also, I'm going back to it. It's an interesting chart. I was looked at it and I was like, all right, this is kind of weird, but no, this is actually kind of cool. Basically, this represents the hype during a short time frame of Kaspa's price history. Basically, when there's just a larger sudden spike in the amount of short-term holders relative to the price. So relative hype just spiked up at this level. Basically, like a hype. Oh my gosh, Kaspa is breaking out. I gotta get some Kaspa. Maybe they just installed their Google Chrome Kasware wallet extension. Maybe they just installed that and moved their Kaspa to that wallet, because this is the amount of the wallets that held Kaspa for less than a week. And it's interesting. It does seem to show top formation happening, this type of hype. Once the hype comes in, a lot of new wallets holding Kaspa for less than a week come in naturally. And as the top happens and as it falls back down, it loses that hype. And then these wallets, you don't have as many of these less than 1 week old wallet addresses holding Kaspa. So it's very interesting, extremely interesting. Definitely kudos to whoever thought of this, or whoever created, of course, Kaspa Media, for presenting it to us as a Kaspa community. So it seems to do a better job at timing the top than it does the bottom, because it just keeps on going lower and lower and lower as the price consolidates. But the top is interesting. It's kind of crazy how, because basically after every single major pump, it's just like the hype dies down. It's just natural. After every major pump, there's just less people coming to Kaspa to buy it. You see the price just rose by 50% in the past few weeks. You're not going to be maybe opening a Kasware wallet to fund your account, to fund your wallet. That happens less. So it makes sense on like a psychological level. So here we are down here. The hype is very low. Good to see, meaning that this is the time to buy before the hype, before the price goes up. Because as the price goes up, the hype goes up. You already know that's how it goes. So overall, I really do like this whole analytic page on castmedia.com. Love it. Love that they're working. Love that they're grinding, producing some great content. Not the content that I would have expected from Kaspa Media, but this is even better. Not gonna lie. So hopefully that helped explain it and showed, and I can share my opinions on it, because you already know I love charts, and Kaspa doing superb.